Well, welcome to NCYM video blogs here. And this week we have Nathan McBroom from Oklahoma City and Austin Peace from Mustang, Oklahoma, or Yukon, Oklahoma, somewhere down. It's a suburb of Oklahoma City, that kind of deal. These guys went to a great school, had a great teacher, all that good stuff. And they're two really good youth ministers. And Nathan's been doing it quite a while, and Austin's in his fourth year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What we're going to talk about this week, real quick, is about how to work together, youth ministers in an area-wide kind of deal, and what you can do to bring your groups together, and for different area-wide meetings or retreats, etc. And so let me just open up and say, I've followed you guys.
I have no idea. There's only 4 lanes.
That you did last week or last weekend, and I would love for you to talk about kind of the genesis of that. How did that come together?
Well, I'll start because chronologically it starts with me. As Dudley said, I've been youth ministry for a long time, and I came into the Oklahoma City area before Austin was in youth ministry, and there was an established rhythm of area-wide things. And during my time here, that rhythm got disrupted, mainly because of people, shifting positions. The kind of leader ministers in those rhythms moved on to other things or other areas of the country. And so I just called up a bunch of youth ministers in the area and said, hey, we're going to meet on OC's campus. It's centrally located. They're going to buy you a coffee, and I want to talk to you about what we can do to get our groups together. And so we just had a general meeting talking about, is area-wide important? What can be good about it? And we laid out those things. What makes it difficult? Like, what are the things that get in the way, and how can we overcome those? And then just said, hey, if I'm the only one who wants to do this, obviously it's not going to happen. Are there other people who think this is good? And we had a good contingency of ministers who said, yeah, I think there's benefit for our groups being together. And so we came up with quite a few ideas. But one of those ideas was to do a area-wide retreat. And that's where Austin really stepped in and took the lead.
Yeah. So I grew up in Houston, was a product of the Memorial Church of Christ youth ministry, and the youth minister down there, Mike Avery, when I was in middle school, started a fall retreat, an area-wide fall retreat for the Houston churches. And I just remember that was so beneficial. I got to know new people when I went off to college. I knew people from that retreat that I'd met, and that was super impactful for me to already have developed relationships, even though I'd moved up to Oklahoma City from Houston. And so, that retreat was successful in my eyes. And so I just was like, I think that this is something that we should do. A lot of guys the youth ministers already had kind of their fall retreat ideas planned. But most of us didn't really have a set thing that we were doing for spring retreats. And so kind of that was what was decided. So this retreat that we had this past weekend was the second year in a row we've done it. Feels like we've found our rhythm to be the weekend before Easter is kind of, that's kind of when it's fallen the past 2 years. And that's subject to change, but yeah, I mean, we have an awesome retreat center, which I think plays probably one of the biggest roles in being able to pull this off. Is the retreat center that we go to. It's well staffed. They're there all weekend. They cook for us. They host our free time together. And that's honestly one of the biggest reasons I think that the kids love it so much is there's more to do. And there's a staff that's already there. So, I mean, us as youth ministers get to just be relational with our students for the most part. So, but yeah.
So what are we talking about? Cost and travel and things like that? It's pretty centrally located for all the groups. What did it cost a kid to go to that weekend?
Yeah. So cost for Oak Ridge, which is Oak Ridge Christian Campus where we go, it was $105 a kid before any subsidizations that each individual church may do. So $105 a kid to go, that pays for their food, that pays for their lodging, and then that pays for that helps pay for our speaker that we bring in. And then that also pays for the staffed free time that we have. And that was like go-karts, rifle shooting, archery, rock climbing. They have a whole lot more that we could do, but those are kind of the things that we've been doing. So
Yeah, we've been talking about my volunteers class this semester about medical release forms and liability release forms and all that. Did that place make every kid sign something, or?
yeah, so each student, actually every student and sponsor that attends has to fill out a waiver for that camp. So yes.
Wow. Okay. Nathan, what's the value of getting a speaker to do the main sessions and you guys not having to worry about that? Talk about that.
Well, it's kind of like what Austin said in regards to food and in regards to providing these kind of next level activities during free time. Being able to focus on the organization, the registrations, being relational with kids during the weekend, just making sure we've got our adults in place. Youth ministers have a lot to do when they're organizing this together. And so having somebody come in from the outside relieves us of the time it would take to prepare for something like that. But I also think it's really good because since we are an area-wide group from a certain area of the country, bringing somebody from the outside who even if they're just one state away, they kind of bring fresh ideas, new perspectives. They kind of speak differently than what we are used to. Really, they get to kind of also themselves focus in on that message. To me, it's exciting because the two guys we've had come so far, we're really excited for the opportunity, and they really relish the chance to really speak to students and to kind of have that be their sole responsibility and yet be present during the weekend. And so I think there's a lot of value in bringing somebody in from the outside to speak.
So I don't know if you've done this, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. What is there follow-up? Do you do a curriculum? Is there something, make this last longer than one weekend, or is it's just a good uplifting weekend retreat?
As far
Right
as
now, it's
curriculum,
just a good uplifting retreat, I would say. We hope to do more with one another, and the feedback I got from our students this week was we want to do more. That was kind of a big overwhelming thing that I heard from them was we'd like to do more with these churches. So right now, no, but hopefully.
Yeah.
well, and so I was going to say, as far as curriculum is concerned, there's not anything, we haven't prepared anything in advance so that the kids can be prepared, and we haven't made anything that youth ministries go home with yet. That would also obviously be really cool to do. But as far as relationally, you know, one of the things I think is cool about this weekend is that my particular church also goes to camp with some of these churches, and so um, we see every single one of these churches at Winterfest. We do this area-wide spring retreat together, and then come the summer, some of us are getting together at camp, whether it's coming as junior counselors to the junior session, and those teenagers get to see each other there, or whether it's going to teen camp together. They get to be present with each other within the first 6 months of the year 3 times, and so I think that's really good. It is an extension. This kind of was a thing to step in the middle of two things that were already happening, at least for our youth ministry,
Yeah.
to connect kids across the city.
Cool. I don't know if y'all know it, but a guy up in Oregon, Sam Mears, his youth group collected cans and bottles all year long. They collected $15,000 worth to come to Winterfest in Arlington, Texas. So they flew from Oregon, came to Winterfest. And I asked him, I said, okay, what were the goals? And he said, I wanted our kids to see other kids. They've never seen over 100 kids together. And you guys, how many did y'all have at the retreat?
We had 140 total people.
Yeah.
It was a little over 100 students
Yeah.
across 7 churches.
Yeah. And that's a big deal for kids to see we're not alone. And there's other people in there doing this, and so that's one of the things I appreciated. And as I watched your dialogue on all the text and everything about, planning and pictures, and I hope none of those get out. But anyway, that was good to see it. What advice would you give guys in metro kind of areas like this that probably a lot of churches, and you probably got some feedback from this from some of the even churches in Oklahoma City that don't come to something like, and you wonder, I mean, why would you not want to do that? And they have their different reasons, but what advice would you give somebody in an area like that wants to start something like this to get it together? What would be some pointers?
My pointer is step number one is not bring the youth groups together, but bring the youth ministers together. Whether it's you seeking out one-on-one times with other youth ministers in order to build your relationship with them, and over time you have 2 or 3 or 4 that you feel like you're friends with, or it's the ability maybe to bring all of them together, get some Christian university to buy the lunch, and that entices some guys to show up, some girls to be there that wouldn't otherwise. And so I would really encourage building relationships between ministers. It's so much easier to go up to your friend that you kind of know already and say, hey, we should get our groups together, than to cold call churches that you don't actually know or have any relationship with the minister there. And so I really think step one is relationships between ministers.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I'd 100% agree with that. Like, we don't get together as often as I'd like to, but we get together probably 3 or 4 times a year. Most of the time there's no agenda. It's just have lunch with one another. Whoever can make it can make it. And that to me has been beneficial just because, I've been spiritually uplifted and encouraged through these conversations, and, getting to know the guys in my area. And it's just been a blessing to me. My advice is, like, I know sometimes it's hard to do that, but like, make the time to be at those things, because you meet new people. You make relationships. And I think another thing is, like, if you've been in an area, especially a metro area, for a long enough period of time, and these days it's probably three years. It's not a whole long time, but like, keep your ear to the ground and listen for these new ministers that are popping up in these churches, and be willing to invite them to those things. A lot of times they may not respond to a whole group email that they just get thrown into, but if one individual reaches out and says, I want you to come with me to this, I've seen our group grow that way because there's different ministers that are reaching out to other newer ministers and bringing them to these lunches that we have. So
Yeah. So how many different churches were involved this past weekend?
we had 7 churches.
Wow.
And so that was growth from last year. And we'd hope to grow it even more. I think we at one point had about 10 churches that were interested in coming.
Yeah.
Um,
And so the facility would hold more?
the facility, I think, will hold up to 400 people.
Oh, wow.
So it's a nice facility. I would say for a retreat, like, be willing to, like, on this level, like, be willing to spend more for the nicer facility with more to do.
Right.
That's
Okay.
just what I think makes the difference. So
Great. Well, I think it's an important thing, and I appreciate you guys doing that. And the whole, when I think about Jesus, and some of the last things he talked about was unity and being one and bringing those things together. And that certainly says something to our teenagers and to your adult volunteers and to you guys, even, to say, hey, this is, we're all in this together, and we can build on each other, etc. Okay, well, any closing thought you want to impart to NCYM goers besides We'll see
One
you
more,
in
yeah.
January.
One more note about like just how you make it happen. One of the things that's made this retreat possible is that um, there have been 3 ministers who said, we're going to do this no matter what, right? And so they did the work necessary for the retreat to happen. But then they pulled in other youth ministers and they said, here's the piece of the weekend that we would love for you to take. And that does 2 things. One, it makes it plug and play. That you say, hey, we're handling registrations, we're getting the place booked, we're grabbing the speaker, we're taking care of all the stuff that's necessary. All you got to do is show up. Oh, but to entice you so you feel like you have ownership, here's a piece.
Yeah.
So then you know that you're necessary. You need to be here to take care of this part. And so give them a simple piece, an easy piece. But if you can get 2 or 3 ministers who are going to do the bulk of the work, that'll get it off the ground. Hopefully, over time, you can spread that work out amongst more. But if you're like, we don't have anything started yet, if you get 2 or 3 ministers who say we are committed to doing the work to make it happen, then you'll end up getting 2 or 3 other churches who are like, oh, this is just something I can come to. Cool, I'm in.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, guys, I know you're busy. It's Friday. It's Good Friday. I'm thankful for Jesus. I hope you are. We know each other because of the resurrection. And so we'll keep this is our 3rd video cast. We'll get this out on the website, ncym.org. And don't forget our days. You can already go up and sign up for January 2 through 5 in Daytona Beach. It'll be beautiful, warm. Bring your golf clubs, bring your spouse. And it'll be great. And stay tuned to more video blogs. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Austin.
Thanks, NCYM. Thanks, Dudley.
God bless you.
Thank you.